The origins of Britain's wide variety of place names always makes for a fascinating story, with most of our villages, towns and cities featuring names of Celtic, Old English, Norse and Norman origin. But just under 2,000 years ago, many places around Britain were christened with very different names, Roman names. So let's take a trip around the country and explore what some of Britain's towns and cities were named in Roman times. We'll start with what was for much of the Roman era the capital of Britannia, London, or as it was known then, Londinium. One of the few Roman era names that bears a resemblance to a modern place name, the original source of the name Londinium is shrouded in mystery, though it's most likely that it's a Latinized form of an older Celtic name for a small settlement by the Thames, possibly Loandinion. Just under 200 miles north of what was Londinium, we find the city of York, which during Roman times also acted as a capital of the province of Britannia, under the name Eboracum. Similar to the origin of Londinium, Eboracum is another name thought to have been adapted by the Romans from a historic Celtic name for York, Eburacon, thought to mean the place where the yew trees grow. Eboracum bears little resemblance to the modern name of York, however, because the city later became the capital of Viking England under the Old Norse name Jorvik, which evolved into York as we know it today. Venturing yet further north towards the very edge of what was the Roman Empire, you'll find the modern city of Newcastle upon Tyne, which during the Roman era existed as a small fort, known by the name Pons Aelius. Pons Aelius, Latin for Aelian Bridge, referred to a Roman-built bridge crossing the river Tyne, and Newcastle's position at what was the original ending point of Hadrian's Wall, or Vallum Aelium in Latin. Both of these names bear a reference to Aelius, the clan name of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who demanded the building of the wall in the 2nd century AD. Despite its location over 1,000 miles away from Rome itself, Tyneside was a region which saw significant Roman settlement, other examples being the town of Wallsend, known as Segedunum, or a strong fort, and the coastal town of South Shields, which in the Roman era was the site of a significant fort named Arbea, so called in reference to a large cohort of Arab troops who were once stationed there. Famously, the Romans struggled to establish an enduring presence to the north of Hadrian's Wall, but across the country at the other end of the historic frontier, you'll find the modern city of Carlisle, a major settlement in the era of the Romans that was known as Lugualium. Significant owing to its position on the wall, Lugualium seems to have been continuously inhabited for the vast majority of the Roman occupation of Britain, and was home to great defensive stone walls, a busy civilian settlement, and modern facilities like aqueducts, which according to witnesses centuries later, continued to work long after the Romans abandoned Britannia. Likely taking its name from the Celtic Lugualion, while the Romans knew Carlisle as Lugualium, locally native Britons came to refer to it as Caer Llywelydd, which bears some resemblance to the modern name Carlisle, but most interestingly speaks to the city's Welsh origins. The prefix Caer is Welsh for a fort, correspondent to the modern English suffix Chester, as in Manchester, Winchester, Colchester, Leicester, Gloucester and Cirencester. All of these modern places had Roman origins of their own. Manchester known as Mamucium, or possibly Mancunium, Winchester, Ventabalgarum, and Colchester, the first major city in Roman Britain, named Camulodunum. Leicester, meanwhile, was known by the rather long-winded name Ratai Corieltauvorum, Gloucester was the much shorter Glewum, and Cirencester, the modern capital of the Cotswolds, was known as Corinium. But of all these Chesters, Cesters and more, one of the cradles of Roman history in Britain today is the city simply known as Chester, located at the northern end of the border between England and Wales. Chester, or simply Caer in Welsh, was one of the great settlements of Roman Britain, starting out life as a fort beside the River Dee, and growing over the centuries into a city in its own right, known in Latin as Deva Victrix, named after the goddess of the River Dee, and the Roman legion Valeria Victrix, which was stationed there. Just across the border, meanwhile, the Romans established a presence in almost every corner of what we now call Wales, typically establishing forts in tribal settlements that already existed, one of the best examples being Moridunum, or the town now known as Carmarthen. Carmarthen, which takes its modern English name from the Welsh Caerfyrddin, took the Latin name Moridunum, owing to its position and function for the Romans, Moridunum literally translating to sea fort. Interestingly, Carmarthen today is one of just a handful of places in Britain where you can see the remains of a Roman amphitheatre, much like the one back up in Chester, a grand venue for entertainment and assemblies that was a vital part of civilian life in the Roman era. But as well as amphitheatres, the Romans are also known to have built luxurious public bathhouses in many of their settlements across the country, and none are better preserved than the ones in the city we now know as Bath. The Roman baths, of course, lend their name to the modern city of Bath, but just under 2,000 years ago, when the baths were first built, the settlement was known as Aquae Sulis, Latin for the waters of Sulis, a Celtic god who, according to legend, has been feeding the baths at Bath for thousands of years, and was worshipped there by the Romans and the Britons. The combination of Roman and Brittonic traditions lies at the core of the origins of many Roman-era place names around the country, but owing to the ups and downs of the last 2,000 years, many of these histories are often unsung, but they always make for a fascinating window into the past. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting, and let me know if you'd like to learn more about British place names in future.